Today is Friday, April 9th. What to know about another new record at the southern border and how much money it's costing the government to try to manage it. Also, what one expert testified really caused George Floyd's death. Plus, why the state of Florida is suing the federal government, what a deal between Netflix and Sony means for your movie watching. And this iconic pop star may have passed away, but he's still releasing new music. We'll explain. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. The surge of children crossing the U.S.-Mexico border by themselves seems to be getting worse. New data from the U.S. Customs and Border Protection Agency shows agents found nearly 19,000 unaccompanied minors last month alone. That's twice the number from just February and the highest monthly number on record. All of that said, the kids made up just 11% of all the people who tried to cross the U.S.-Mexico border last month. The thing is, adults and families are often turned away, but the rules are different for kids who show up alone. The U.S. is forced to find space for them until they're placed with vetted adult sponsors, and that's taking a toll. A Washington Post analysis found the U.S. government is now spending at least $60 million a week to care for the kids and teenagers in shelters, and those costs are expected to get even higher in the coming months. The Biden administration has raced to open at least 10 large emergency facilities, and the Post says those emergency sites cost a lot more than the permanent shelters since they need to set up facilities quickly and hire a lot of extra staff. Federal officials say for now they do not plan to ask Congress for more money, but that could change since they're expecting as many as 184,000 unaccompanied minors to reach the border in just this fiscal year. Lawyers have started a new phase in the murder trial of the former police officer accused of killing George Floyd. They're now starting to question medical experts about exactly what caused Floyd's death. Remember, defense lawyers are trying to prove it was not former officer Derek Chauvin kneeling on Floyd that killed him. Instead, they point to Floyd's poor health and drug use. So prosecutors tried to get ahead of it and kill that theory this week. They brought in a doctor who's a renowned expert on breathing, and he said even a healthy person would have died from that kind of restraint Chauvin used. He also testified that the amount of drugs in Floyd's system would not have impacted his breathing. However, defense lawyers are expected to call their own medical experts later in the trial, so it's possible they say something different. Already, jurors have heard from dozens of witnesses, and they're expected to hear from dozens more before this trial wraps up. Police say a former NFL player shot and killed a prominent doctor and his family. It happened in Rock Hill, South Carolina yesterday, just across the border from Charlotte, North Carolina. The suspect, Philip Adams, was an NFL defensive back for 6 teams over 5 seasons until injuries sidelined him for good. Police say his parents lived down the street from the victims, Dr. Robert Leslie and his family. A maintenance man who was doing work on their house was also killed. At one time, the AP reports Dr. Leslie treated Adams. After an 8-hour manhunt and short standoff, police say Adams killed himself as well. Adams' father says he thinks football might have messed him up. But so far, investigators have not said what may have motivated him to do this. Also, more than 1,000 miles away in Bryan, Texas, not far from Texas A&M University, authorities say a man shot 6 people at his workplace. One person died at the cabinet-making company. The others are all seriously hurt. In this case, the suspect was arrested, but again, investigators are still working to figure out the motive. Well, a couple of COVID-19 vaccination sites temporarily shut down this week because a portion of people had immediate bad side effects. 11 people in Colorado and 18 people in North Carolina had reactions right after getting the Johnson & Johnson shot. Their side effects included dizziness, fainting, and nausea. Overall, 6 people were taken to the hospital. However, both sites will reopen. And keep in mind, hundreds of other people had gotten the J&J shot at the same locations on the same days, so most people were fine. The CDC also says it did not find any safety issues with the shot or reason to be concerned. It recommended these sites keep giving out the vaccine. By the way, the CDC says so far about a quarter of American adults have been fully vaccinated against COVID-19, and about 43% of American adults have now gotten at least 1 dose. The skyscraper-sized container ship called the Ever Given may not be blocking traffic in the Suez Canal anymore, but it's still there in a wider part of the canal, unable to complete its journey. The captain is not allowed to set sail until the company that owns the ship pays up. As the Wall Street Journal reports, Egyptian officials are asking for up to $1 billion in damages from the Japanese company that owns the Ever Given. But an Egyptian newspaper reports Canal officials have said they're willing to negotiate on a settlement. And if the company agrees, the ship can start moving again. Meanwhile, investigators are still looking into what caused the massive ship to get lodged in the Suez Canal in the first place. You'll remember the Ever Given blocked traffic in the canal for 6 days before a high tide helped workers free it and let hundreds of other ships pass. It's estimated the traffic jam there held up about $10 billion worth of trade per day. All right, we have more news still ahead, but first, thanks to our sponsor this week, Native. Native cares about your self-care, offering personal care products that you can feel good about putting on your body every single day. In fact, that's the main reason I only use Native deodorant. I feel good about what's in it. They include only ingredients I've actually heard of. And none of their products are tested on animals, and almost everything is vegan. Plus, Native also cares for the environment. They've been offering some plastic-free options for a while now, and they just launched additional plastic-free deodorant scents, including lilac and white tea, eucalyptus and mint, cotton and lily, and more. And you can now also get unscented and the aloe and green tea sensitive in plastic-free as well. Oh, and Native is also about convenience. You can simply subscribe to Native so you'll never have to sweat about running out of deodorant again. So make the switch to Native today if you haven't already by going to nativedeo.com/newsworthy or use the code newsworthy at checkout and get 20% off your first order. That's nativedeo.com/newsworthy or use the promo code newsworthy at checkout to get 20% off your first order. Okay, now back to the news. Florida is suing the federal government to get cruise lines back up and running. The state's governor, Ron DeSantis, says the cruise industry is a vital part of the state's economy and that tens of thousands of Floridians rely on the industry for jobs. DeSantis says keeping strict regulations in place is not rational because more people are getting vaccinated and other industries like airlines, hotels, and restaurants have been allowed to reopen. So he's asking a judge to invalidate the CDC's guidelines. When asked about this, the White House press secretary said the CDC's restrictions on cruise lines are based on scientific evidence. You may remember at the beginning of the pandemic, the CDC traced at least 800 COVID-19 cases to 3 cruise ships. And that led to a no-sail order last March. Well, the CDC just updated its policies last week to gradually get cruise ships operating again. But there are still plenty of requirements for cruise lines. They must set up regular testing, have arrangements with medical centers on land, and do test runs before they can apply for sailing permission. Still, the Industry Trade Association, Cruise Lines International, says the CDC guidelines are unworkable. So far, the CDC has not responded to this lawsuit. Expedia Group launched a new tool designed to help would-be travelers navigate COVID-19 restrictions around the world. The company not only owns the Expedia website, but also Vrbo, Travelocity, Hotels.com, and others. To use the Travel Advisor tool, you type in your starting point, destination, and travel dates, and the system brings up all the relevant information. For example, which countries want to see a recent negative COVID test or make visitors isolate for a few days upon arrival. Here in the U.S., the CDC has said once you're fully vaccinated, it's considered safe to travel domestically without needing to quarantine. But that's not the case abroad, especially since other countries are lagging on vaccination rates. In fact, just to the north, Canada has had one of the slowest vaccine rollouts of all developed countries and is now dealing with new lockdowns as variants spread. The U.S. State Department has a travel advisory list on its website, and right now most countries are labeled as level 3, meaning Americans should reconsider their plans. Some of them include popular travel destinations like Italy, France, the UK, Mexico, Aruba, Thailand, and Japan. Netflix and Sony are teaming up. The two companies reached an exclusive licensing deal. It means Netflix will be getting first dibs on all of Sony's films. It starts with the movies set for release in 2022, like the Marvel movie Morbius, where the Crawdads sing, based on the popular book by that same name, and the thriller Bullet Train, starring Brad Pitt. Netflix will also gain access to popular franchises like Spider-Man, Venom, and Bad Boys, which are all expected to have future additions. But the movies won't debut in theaters and on Netflix on the same day, like we've seen with recent movies on HBO Max and Disney+. Instead, movies will appear on Netflix after their time in theaters and video-on-demand rentals are done. As Sony explained, Netflix will also produce certain films Sony wants to make direct for streaming. It's not clear exactly how much this deal cost, but Deadline reports Netflix may have bid as high as $1 billion over 4 years. Nearly 5 years after the iconic musician Prince passed away, fans are getting some new music from him. His estate released a new single called Welcome to America on streaming services, including Spotify, Tidal, Apple Music, and YouTube. And that's just a sneak preview. It's the title track of an album Prince recorded back in 2010, but never released. Now the estate says the whole 12-song album will come out in July. And the New York Times reports Prince's iconic vault is believed to hold hundreds and possibly thousands more songs. And that's it for the main news today, but now it's time for Feel Good Friday, when we bring you one extra feel-good or positive news story before the weekend. But first, thanks to our sponsor, Lightstream. If you're looking for a way to pay less interest on your credit card balances, listen up. Lightstream offers credit card consolidation loans from 5.95% APR with autopay and excellent credit. So with a credit card consolidation loan, you can combine multiple debts from credit cards into one payment that may also lower your interest rate. And the rate is fixed, so it'll never go up over the life of the loan. Plus, there are no fees. In fact, Lightstream does not even need to say hidden fees because there are just no fees at all. Simply go to lightstream.com/newsworthy and you can put in your personal numbers and see the interest rate you would get with a Lightstream loan. Then, if it's a good fit, the Newsworthy listeners can apply now to get a special interest rate discount and save even more. That's lightstream.com/newsworthy. This is subject to credit approval. Rates range from 5.95% APR to 19.99% APR and include a 0.50% autopay discount. Lowest rate requires excellent credit. Terms and conditions apply and offers are subject to change without notice. Go to lightstream.com/newsworthy for all the information. Now back to Feel Good Friday. Married musicians Peter and Veronica Fuchs both had decades-long careers in show business. Before they retired, he was a composer and a conductor. She was a Broadway singer. And now at 91 and 87 years old, they've been able to create a runaway hit. 13 months ago, they wanted to find a way to entertain their neighbors in the retirement community, many of whom were isolated during the pandemic. So they started a daily Facebook Live show called Stump the Maestro. Peter, who is now 91, begins by playing a few songs on the piano, and Veronica encourages viewers to guess the tunes. She then takes requests from people on Facebook Live. They're usually jazz standards, show tunes, or some Frank Sinatra. Usually, Peter can play every song from memory. But if Peter doesn't know a song, he lets the audience know he's been stumped, and he'll look it up to play it the very next day. Veronica and Peter finish each hour-long session by performing an original song called Wear a Mask. Since they started this show, it's become pretty popular and people tune in from all over the world. So the couple says they're going to keep it up. They say Stump the Maestro has been a fun distraction for them, and it makes them feel great to know they're making other people happy too. All right, thank you so much for listening today and for being part of this community, getting fast, fair, fun news every day. We'll be back with our special edition Saturday episode tomorrow, explaining the NFT frenzy, and another news roundup on Monday. Until then, have a great day.